Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly update video for the 21st of August, and today we're going to be talking about TFM and their decision with regard to P3D and PMDG, which we've already covered in a previous video, but there's been some talk about it and some more details given, so I thought I would go into it in a little bit more detail. The normal thing for these videos is I summarize the blog post, but given that there's been talk about this and what was specifically said, I thought I should just read the section of the blog that this pertains to. So, on the section about P3D support, they say, P3D 6 was released sometime last month. Some significant changes were made to the P3D framework and scenery. However, these changes broke support for the PMDG lineup of aircraft. In their own words, PMDG aircraft do not work in version 6. PMDG announced that after trying to add support for P3D version 6, they had deeper problems than just changing some installer files. In the same announcement, they stated that revisiting this problem wouldn't happen until the 777 and 747 arrived in MSFS. This puts the time frame sometime in mid to late 2024, as reported in the announcement. PMDG most likely won't continue support for P3D if the changes require too many resources and too much time. Since MSFS arrived on the scene, the market share for P3D 4M5, that is, has significantly declined. Even though more add-ons and scenery exist for P3D than MSFS, which is questionable to be honest and probably rapidly decreasing, more add-ons are being altered or newly developed for MSFS. This brings us to Talking Flight Monitor's placement within the market. Talking Flight Monitor strives to support as many simulators as possible. However, we are also limited in time and resources. Since the market value of P3D is declining in favour of MSFS and PMDG doesn't support P3D version 6, we are not supporting P3D version 6 or continuing any new development in P3D version 5. Any development in Talking Flight Monitor will be focused on MSFS. Keep the following in mind, and there's some bullet points. When features are identical in both simulators, we will support P3D v5 and earlier. Talking Flight Monitor, if Talking Flight Monitor works in version 6, it is at your own risk. So, I'll just pause there. So essentially, they are stating that as long as the SDK does not change in PMDG's products in version 5, they will continue to work as advertised. If that SDK remains the same and a change was made or something was added in Microsoft, it should work in P3D. However, if the SDK is drastically changed in P3D, there is the potential that some new features that are added for Microsoft would not work in the P3D versions. So, and if that was the case, the priority to get things working would be with Microsoft and not with P3D. And then they go on. As long as the PMDG SDKs are the same or close to the same, we will support the P3D versions. If the PMDG SDKs are drastically different, the MSFS versions take priority. Navigraph support is independent from the simulator and so will work in P3D and MSFS. So they just got Navigraph, the Eric cycle and the update to the hub happened last week, and so that's now available if you build it from source. There's no features, as I said, for it yet, but you can build it from source and it'll be there. We will not support Aerosoft products, so I think we've already said that before, but categorically no Aerosoft products for P3D. That is apparently because of Aerosoft's unwillingness to work with them with regard to Microsoft, so they can't support them in Microsoft. They're not being cooperative in terms of FMC output. And in P3D, the TFM believes that the time that it would take to get current Aerosoft products to work is not going to be particularly fruitful, and the time that it would take is not really best spent doing that. We do not support FS2 Crew or similar products. I'm not sure where that one came from, but anyway, I don't use FS2 Crew. I don't think many people do, but it is. I mean, it's a cool product, but it's not really related to TFM. Neither is First Officer, to be honest with you. We do not support the PMDG DC-6 or basically any other aircraft. So any other, PMDG planes, the DC-6 is a much older aircraft. You can't just expect them to support that. It also has pretty much no automatic systems. It's a very cool aircraft, but it's by today's standards, it's obviously archaic. So it would require a whole new different set of learning, and also it would require PMDG to do various things for TFM to support it. Support for a SOBO aircraft requires evaluation. So that's for Microsoft. They are evaluating the Garmin systems, and they're evaluating a SOBO default aircraft like the 787 to see what can be pulled and what can be done with that. But as they emphasize, they're a two-man project. That seems to be kind of one of the key messages. They're emphasizing their lack of resources and lack of time to do all of these projects, and the amount that TFM is already backed up in terms of ideas, concepts, and future features is years. Again, we will do our best to keep P3D V5 and earlier support going. However, we can't make any promises to that effect. We hope everyone understands our decision to move away from P3D support. In the event PMDG does support P3D version 6, we will reassess the situation. So there's the blog. There's just some little clarifications. In terms of my thoughts on it, I think it makes total sense. It's not going to change anything in the day-to-day in the coming future. P3D, everything we've already got is still going to work, and things that may well be added probably will work in P3D as well, because ultimately what you got to remember is PMDG haven't updated their PMDG line of aircraft for the simulator P3D 5 or 4 for months. They haven't updated them since January 2023. And if you look at the MSFS updates, they've been pretty much putting one out every few weeks. So that just shows you their attention for P3D is very, very limited. And so really the likelihood of the SDK changing drastically in P3D is quite small anyway. But if it did, for whatever reason, or if something got broken for whatever reason, further down the line, P3D is going to become more and more obsolete. It's just not got a market share anymore, and it's not possible to maintain equal access for products that are no longer updated forever, right? You can't, it's a simple question of how long do you maintain equal access for? If you want to go down that line and you want to say, okay, well, this is unfair, TFM is not providing equal access. Well, for one thing, how can it provide equal access when PMDG themselves are not providing equal access, because TFM has no control over that? And secondly, the older simulators, FSX, FS 2004, FS 2002, how long are we going to go back and say, oh, it's not providing equal access? It's just nonsense. You have to eventually draw a line in the sand and say, we're going to start transitioning. If TFM had come out and said, okay, we're going to cut all support for P3D, it's a joke, get rid of it, we're not providing it anymore, we're removing it, it's only going to work in Microsoft, then sure, you could say, hold on a minute, why? This is ridiculous. But they haven't. This is going to remain, what you already have is going to remain and always will in TFM for years and years. And if something were to change, they've still not ruled out, coming back and adding to the P3D stuff, but it's just that it's not the overall priority, right? And PMDG's cycle, as they point out, is backed up until the end of 2024, probably more, if you think about it, because they've got the 777, which let's assume that comes at the end of this year. They've got the 747 lineup. Let's make a generous assumption and assume that comes out next year. Then they've got the 737 MAX that they're going to do. That's going to take them well into 2025. So PMDG are well backed up. Do you really think at the end of that, in 2-3 years' time, P3D is still going to be going strong and they're going to come back and they're going to update it? Because although P3D will certainly be around, I don't expect P3D to disappear, because it's a simulator used for a lot more than just us home simmers. The ability for P3D in years to come, even now, to hold a market within the home simmer space is becoming more and more limited, because there's just not the scope anymore that it used to have. And the scope for Microsoft in terms of sceneries, in terms of aircraft, in terms of friendliness toward developers, in terms of the abilities that it provides for developers to make their add-ons more aesthetically and systematically pleasing, is getting wider and wider. So it's a transition. Everything moves forward, everything transitions, and that's a completely understandable decision from my perspective, from TFM, and I think it's sensible. Obviously, it's a shame that Aerosoft is not going to be supported. It is unfortunate, because I know a lot of people were looking forward to getting the Airbus in P3D. Ultimately, though, we are getting the fly-by-wire in Microsoft, provided everything continues to go well and they continue to cooperate. And there are other products in MSFS that may well be usable toward us and for us. And the fact that Aerosoft are not being particularly cooperative in the MSFS space with their coming aircraft is unfortunate. And I pointed out last weekly update video that probably as a community we do need to be pushing for that. Obviously we can't demand it, but we do need to be pushing for that, particularly with the aircraft that Aerosoft are making under funding from the German government. They're not the only company in the flight sim space to get funding from the state, but that is a significant chunk of money they've got, and they're making those aircraft under direction to make this A330neo and A321neo. So it would be excellent if they actually acquiesce to some asks from our community and put stuff in that either makes it natively usable or open to add-ons such as TFM. Are they going to do that? Well, I don't know. I mean, the likelihood is low, but we can at least continue to make that case publicly. But the fact that TFM is not able to get cooperation out of Aerosoft currently is not really TFM's problem. And so they can only support what will cooperate, and they can only really support simulators that are being used by the market. And the only reason that P3D is continuously used by our community is because of the heavies, the 7.4 and the triple. And when they get moved over in the next year or two, there won't really be any reason for anyone to recommend P3D to an incoming user. Why on earth would you? It's more expensive. You need more add-ons. I mean, you need a flipping weather add-on and a real-time add-on or something if you want just to get some time and weather in your simulator. So it's not an ideal thing to recommend when Microsoft is there once all the aircraft have come across. So perfectly understandable decision. Obviously, people will have differences of opinion, and that's perfectly fine. But I think it's a necessary transition, and it's just gonna happen gradually, and that's good. We want it to happen gradually. It doesn't need to be yanking everyone into a new simulator. Microsoft, away from P3D, it can just happen naturally, and I think it will. I think there will come a point where we just realize as a community, wow, we haven't used P3D in several months. If you look at it, you think, wow, I haven't even opened it. So there will be a gradual transition until we realize that P3D is no longer needed, really. And so I think it's perfectly understandable. As I said, they also mentioned Navigraph, which is now in the source build that you can go and build. There are now instructions on the BVI Pilots .NET website if you want to build it from source. Andy wrote some instructions and we put them up there. So if you go to our tutorials section and go to the entry on building TFM from source, you can find details on how to do that. Obviously it's a little bit complex, I'm not going to say it's simple, but if you want to do it, then feel free to be aware, of course, that everything there is a work in progress. So a bug is, might be a bug, but it's also something that could be in work in progress. It's currently still literally being coded, so it's not complete. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and I don't think there was anything new, to be honest with you. It was really just clarifying things that were already out there, but just to kind of go through it and discuss why it's kind of an important transition then I thought that was useful. In terms of Microsoft, Sim Update is in beta. The next Sim Update, Sim Update 13, and there are some small accessibility improvements so far. People are reporting that it's a bit snappier on the narration, that it's performing better on their systems. People are reporting that there's less jumping around of the cursor. There are still some issues with the key mappings, although people are reporting that it's getting better. Hopefully that continues to improve during the update cycle. But yeah, good news. You can see that they're still working on narration. There are positive changes, so that's always a plus, and hopefully that continues. All right, and I'll see you in the next weekly update video.